in with you again later on in the night. But for now, we are about to move in to the all-important qualifying session, a 4-lap or 10-minute session. So they've got 10 minutes and they can set a maximum 4 flying laps. And Luke Browning, the man we're watching now on the screen coming through Paddock Hill Bend, yet to be beaten in qualifying. It's 6 for 6 qualifying sessions, 6 pole positions, but on 5 of those occasions it has been his teammate Lulham who has shared the front row of the grid with him. The only time that Lulham was not on the front row all season long, interestingly, was here at Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit, when we visited the Indy circuit for the second event of the season, and Chris Lulham only managed 4th on the grid that time around. However, as I said, sort of backing up those stats that I gave you earlier on, he may have qualified 4th, but he was able to pick up a place into 3rd, and whilst Browning won the race, Lulham definitely, even at that early stage of the season, was able to limit the damage that was done. But it is kind of Browning that's arriving here with the momentum. He didn't win a race at Silverstone last time out, which was the first time for a while that he didn't manage to win a race on any given night, but he did have a 2nd in race 1 and a 4th in race 2. It was a brilliantly consistent pair of races on the Silverstone International Circuit a week ago for Luke Browning. Now he really needs consistency to go out of the window. He's got to try and win this first race. Remember, for winning a race, you score 25 points. For finishing 2nd, you score 18. That's a 7-point swing between 1st and 2nd in each and every race. So he's only 14 points behind. It doesn't take a genius to work out that if he wins both races, then he guarantees at very best it's going to be a tie between the two of them. On the tiebreaker, that's where things start to get really very interesting, actually. It would be Lulham at the moment that won on a tiebreaker because they have the same amount of wins, the same amount of 2nd place finishes, but Chris Lulham has 2 3rd place finishes, whilst Luke Browning does not have any. So as of now, a tiebreaker would go the way of Chris Lulham, but of course if Browning gets himself a couple of wins tonight, that all starts to change. Browning then onto his first flying lap of the session now. It's a reasonably lengthy lap here, 2.3 miles, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, so he should have decent temperature in the tyres already, but we have seen generally that the quicker lap times have come on laps 3 and 4 sometimes, but certainly lap 3 I think is the best time for the tyres. That's where they really have a lot of grip. His way now down through Dingledale into Sheen Curve, and into the left-hander at Surtees. Down to the final corner they go then, and Luke Browning, what is the first lap time going to be? Well, a couple of others have beaten him to it, and 1:18.2 for Luke Whitehead is the time to beat. I remind you, it's a lone qualifying session, so whilst we can only see one car on the track, they are all going around the same time, but all in their own sort of individual sessions, if you see what I mean. Through went Browning and did not set a time, so that must mean that he exceeded track limits on that lap somewhere. The lap time was disallowed. Chris Lulham also running very wide there out of Graham Hill Bend, so neither of these two set a time as of yet, although Chris Lulham, I believe, no, he's also on his 2nd lap, so they both exceeded track limits then and had lap times disallowed on the first lap of the session. That is interesting. Jonathan Hoggard then goes to provisional pole on a 1:17.8. That's a 1/10 of a second quicker than Rafa Martins, who's on a bit of a roll after his race victory at Silverstone a week ago. Luke Whitehead is 3rd, Zane Maloney 4th, and Marion Kramer's in the 5th position right now. So, through the right-hander at Sheen Curve goes Chris Lulham then, and he and Luke Browning locked in combat now for the championship. If ever there was a time for Lulham to score a pole position, it would definitely be now, because he would love to start ahead of his teammate Browning. Of course, no points available for qualifying on pole position, but it's that crucial track position going into the first corner. Here we go then. Lulham comes across the line. Is this time going to register? That's the first question. The answer is yes, it does, but it's only 4th quickest, 4/10 off Zach O'Sullivan's time, which is currently the fastest in the session. Nico Verone's gone 2nd. Luke Whitehead goes 3rd, which is now 4th, because Luke Browning goes to pole position. Rafa Martins jumps back onto the front row with him as well, so it's Browning from Martins, the top 2, and that puts Chris Lulham down in 7th position. Lulham really needs to try and regroup on this next lap. Back with Luke Browning now, then heading out of Graham Hill Bend. This is the man that is on provisional pole position. It would be a real achievement if he could qualify on pole in each of the 7 qualifying sessions we've had this season. That is the sort of dominance that you very rarely see, even in virtual racing. And Luke Browning on the verge of doing it. He's got a 2/10 of a second cushion right now over Rafa Martins. Hoggard, O'Sullivan, Verone still rounding out the top 5. Chris Lulham is 7th, 8 8/10 of a second slower. Luke Browning, you have to imagine he made a mistake somewhere, or maybe he was a bit cautious because he'd had that first lap time disallowed. But Luke Browning, as he must do, is throwing caution to the wind. He is pushing on here and trying to improve again on what is his third flying lap of the session. He gets out of Surtees down towards the final corner. He and Chris Lulham both going to cross the line pretty much simultaneously. Lulham is fractionally ahead. His lap time will come through first, and it goes second. Chris Lulham goes onto the front row of the grid. He's still a 10th and a half off Luke Browning's time, but he is at least to the outside of row one. Browning improves again to a 1:17.0, and Jonathan Hoggard splits the two. So Jonathan Hoggard gets himself into the mix now. The Vortec drivers all running strongly tonight. Browning on pole, Hoggard second, and Lulham back down to third. It's not quite as bad as his qualifying effort on the Indy circuit earlier on this season, where he qualified fourth, but Lulham really did not want any cars between himself and Luke Browning, because if Browning can get that victory in race one, that will really put some pressure on Chris going into the championship decider later on tonight. As we watch Luke Browning then heading down the hill, he's on another flying lap now. This will be his final lap of the session. Apologies, by the way, if a few of you have experienced some technical issues on the Formula 4 YouTube channel. I believe that we're up and running again now, but apologies if you missed the very start of the broadcast. You didn't miss much. We had 10 minutes of practice, and now we're into the really important qualifying session here that will decide the grid for our first race of the evening. And Luke Browning and Chris Lulham just 14 points apart. Browning needs to try and get that pole position and try to convert it into a race victory. Right, Lulham's about to complete another lap. He's dropped down to fifth now because O'Sullivan and Verone have both improved, and Lulham's latest lap time did not see a further improvement. So Lulham has completed the session down in fifth, and Luke Browning goes quicker again. Luke Browning with a 1:16.84. Jonathan Hoggard goes second, and that pushes Lulham down to sixth. This was not in the script for the championship leader. Chris Lulham could be on for, well, he's going to be on now for his worst qualifying effort of the season, and it's coming at the worst possible time, the final qualifying of the season. And, well, Chris Lulham in sixth position is going to struggle now to take the necessary points out of Luke Browning, who is on pole position. I don't think we're going to see many more improvements. Jonathan Hoggard is second, Rafa Martin's third, Zach O'Sullivan in fourth, Nico Verone fifth, and Chris Lulham in at sixth position, with Zane Maloney seventh. James Headley we're following now. He's on his final lap of the session. He's in eighth, and pulling his ninth. Luke Whitehead in 10th position. Oh, this is going to be really, really intense now. Luke Browning has a golden opportunity here to take the points. He could even take the championship lead away from Chris Lulham. If Browning were to win the race, Lulham would have to be somewhere inside the top 4 or 5, I reckon, in order to... Yeah, I think he'd have to be inside the top 4 in order to hold on to the championship lead. So we were saying at the start of the night that it was Browning that, as a bare minimum, needed to be on the podium to keep his hopes alive. All of a sudden, the pressure is on Chris Lulham. Here comes James Headley across the start-finish line. Then can he improve on 8th position? His final lap of the session, the answer appears to be no. So James Headley completes. Abby Pulling is also, I think, now at the end of her session. Yes, she's completed all 4 laps. She's backing off. So there we are. We have our grid, and Luke Browning is the man who has got the pole position. He completes his run of 100% qualifying record on pole position. Been beaten all season long. Alexei Nesov here is still going. Now, he hasn't actually registered a lap time yet, but this is his 5th lap of the session, so I'm not quite sure how this is all going to work out. It might be that this is his final flying lap of the session, but he's clearly been exceeding track limits along the way. Alexei Nesov, the Russian driver, 3 podium finishes to his name so far this season. Is now coming down into the final corner, and he will officially be the last driver to complete the session. Once he's done so, and once the final 30 seconds or so elapse, we'll be able to give you a full rundown of that grid. Where does Nesov slip into it? He crosses the line, and does he finally register a lap time? I don't think he does, you know. So Alexei Nesov, yeah, that last lap I don't think was counted. So Nesov ends up starting at the back of the grid alongside Christian Mansell, right at the tail end of the field. So a couple of drivers there that really ought to be a bit further towards the sharp end, and they'll definitely be looking to try and gain some ground at the start. And that was not really how I expected this to go. I mean, Pulling here, you can see just doing a bit of a practice start. Of course, that's the next phase of this for Luke Browning. He's got to get a good start and try and just run away with it out front, basically. That will be said than done. Look at the grid then. Luke Browning and Jonathan Hoggard sharing row 1. So it is an all Fortec front row, but not necessarily the second Fortec driver you might have expected. Rafa Martins is third. He's got Zach O'Sullivan for company on row 2. Nico Verone and Chris Lullum on row 3. So Lullum will be 6th on the grid. His worst qualifying effort of the season. As to try and do some overtaking here, but he's right in the thick of the action there going into Paddock Hill Bend. Zane Maloney and James Headley are on the 4th row, Abby Pulling and Luke Whitehead on row 5 to round out the top 10. Then Marion Kramers and Nathan de Villiers, Alex Connor and Fred Lubin. Then Nico Pino, Christian Mansell and Alexei Nesov at the back of the grid. But then your bets, everybody, because this is setting up to be an absolutely thrilling finale to the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Luke Browning, 14 points adrift of Chris Lullum, but he's 6th places ahead of him on the grid. So the white cars with the red noses are the Fortec cars. The third car on the outside, the right-hand side of our screen, is Chris Lullum, the championship leader. Right in the midfield. That's where things can go wrong. That's where contact can be made. That's where damage can be done. And the one thing he really can't afford here is a non-finish or having to limp round to the pit lane with damage. That would hand it on a plate, surely, to Luke Browning. If he can get off the line well. Remember, Luke Browning uses a foot clutch, whereas lots of other drivers use hand clutches. That could be a disadvantage. Let's see what happens then. 20 minutes of action around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit about to get underway. Luke Browning and Jonathan Hoggard, the two Fortec drivers on row 1. The lights go out. Away they go. The penultimate round of the championship bursts into life, and Luke Browning is away perfectly. Gets the lead into turn number 1. Hoggard follows him in 2nd, and Rafa Martin's 3rd. They're in grid order then for the top 3. Chris Lullum is still in 6th position. He's looking to the outside line. Into Drew is trying to go around the outside of the Carlin driver, Zach O'Sullivan, and running wide in front of them, Nico Verone as well. That gives one position to Lullum, or maybe is he into 5th? Yes, he is. Verone leaves him room. Oh no! Sideways in front of him. That is Zach O'Sullivan who goes around, and Chris Lullum is involved in contact. That's exactly what we feared could happen. There's not too much damage done to the front of the car. The safety car's being thrown as well, but that was always the risk with Lullum starting in the middle of the pack. It's so easy to get caught up in someone else's accident, and that is what happened. Zach O'Sullivan got sideways as he was gathering it together. Lullum ran into the back of him, and now we have to wonder what damage has been done to the front of that Fortec car. Absolutely no damage to the other Fortec cars, though. Luke Browning and Jonathan Hoggard running 1-2. There was contact further back, by the way, there with Marion Kramers ending up off the road. So unfortunately, I think that might have been Nathan de Villiers he was involved with. But then when they got down into Graham Hill Bend, that is where it all went wrong. I'd be pulling with a spin as well coming out of paddock. So there were a few drivers went around at the very start of the race. So I'm keen to see what happens between Zach O'Sullivan and Chris Lullum as they went through Graham Hill Bend. Here we go. So O'Sullivan goes up the inside of Verone, place gain. Lullum is doing the same. Verone lets Lullum through, but then O'Sullivan just gets sideways. And I think he hits the brakes to try and stop the car sliding. Now, did he hit the curb? Let's see. Get another look from another angle here. Does he hit the curb too hard? No, he loses the rear on the way in. So just cold rear tyres. He turned into the corner, and oh my word, it was a big hit there. And crucially, by the way, Chris Lullum has just headed for the pit lane. So Chris Lullum has taken the advantage of the safety car here to make some repairs to the front of his car. He's coming in to get those repairs made because of that contact that he had with Zach O'Sullivan. You can see the damage to the front wing. It's been bent on both sides. So Chris Lullum with quite a lot of front-end damage. Must be bursting inside his sim rig there. We're on board with Chris now, who I think is back out onto the track. Yes, he is. So Chris Lullum back into the race, and I don't think he lost a lap. He didn't. He's still on the lead lap critically. So Chris Lullum then is in 14th place. Only score points down to 10th. So that's his first objective, get into the top 10. That should be doable. All the time he knows that Luke Browning, his big rival, is out at the front of the field. I'm a firm believer in momentum when it comes to racing, and I really think that second half of the season you want to be finishing with a flourish, so to speak, and Luke Browning definitely has better momentum coming into this race than Lullum. Lullum has won 2 of the last 3 races. The most recent one, he finished in 18th place. First time he'd been out of the points all season long. And sometimes that can just carry over into the next round. It starts playing on your mind. You start worrying about whether it's going to happen again, whether it's not meant to be. Some drivers maybe a bit more superstitious than other. Sullivan, I would recommend, Zach, that maybe you head to the pit lane and get that fixed, because the car is crabbing its way down Pilgrim's Drop. There's no rear wing. The rear suspension is clearly out of kilter. But Zach O'Sullivan for some strange reason, decided not to use this safety car to come into the pit lane and repairs. He's holding up Abby Pulling now, who's trying to catch up to the rear of the field. She has been in the pits, and O'Sullivan spins now, coming through this field. Yeah, O'Sullivan's definitely going to have to come into the pit lane, I think, to get those get that damage repaired. He's not going to get he's not going to be able to get through here, I don't think, without getting that damage fixed. So Zach O'Sullivan then is being given the meatball flag. He's been given the black and orange flag, saying that he has to come in to get that repaired, which I think is a sensible decision, or in all honesty. O'Sullivan then continues his way. The lights, though, are out on the safety car, so we're going to go racing this time. So just to set things up for you right now, as things stand, Chris Lulham would be scoring 0 points, Luke Browning would be scoring 25, and that would give him an 11-point lead in the championship going into the final race of the season. So it is all now about what Chris Lulham can do. How many points can Lulham score, assuming, of course, Browning holds on to the race victory. But Browning is in a good position here. He's got his teammate behind him, Jonathan Hoggard, but then in third position, Rafa Martins as well. The first of the... so Martins is the first of the Arden drivers. Third place. Then Zane Maloney, who makes a welcome return to the championship here. So Zane Maloney had to miss the previous round. He was travelling at the time, but he's back with us now for the championship finale. He's in fifth position, Verona in front of him and James Headley just behind him. An interesting little caveat to this, as has just been pointed out to me by Damien Meaden, is that this looks bad for Chris Lulham, because he's all the way down in 14th place with his championship rival leading and set to take the championship lead away from him. But remember, race 2 is a full reversed grid, so everyone that completes 75% race distance and is still running at the flag, which again we have to assume Lulham probably will be, gets reversed. So if you finish, say, 14th place, you'll be on pole position for race number 2. So it's not all doom and gloom here for Lulham. It definitely isn't ideal. I think he'd have much rather won the race or finished on the coattails of Browning and then had them both having to work their way through the field in race 2. But this might not be over for Lulham. That reverse grid might just save him for the second race later on. Enough speculation, though. Let's get back to racing here. We are about a quarter of the way, just past a quarter of the way through the race, and Luke Browning is bunching them all up, ready for a restart. His teammate, Jonathan Hoggard, behind. Now, I wonder if the two Fortec teammates will play any games here. Will Hoggard try and back up the rest of the field, give Browning a bit of a margin, or does he accelerate with him? Browning goes, and no, Hoggard goes pretty much straight after as well, so it's a fair restart. Not a good restart for Martins in third, though. They're stacking up behind him already. Nico Verona goes to the outside for third. Zane Maloney's in it as well, and they go 3 wide almost into Panakill Bend. That surely won't work. There's almost contact there. Maloney's up the inside of Verona there, but I think that all... No, there have been changes then, so Maloney goes into third place, Verona fourth, and Rafa Martins has, I think, got into the gravel, so there was contact there, I believe, possibly between Rafa Martins and Zane Maloney. We'll pull up a replay in a moment if we can, as they come back out of Graham Hill and straight into Surtees. Zane Maloney into third, but how did he do it? Was there contact? Rafa Martins has had to go into the pit lane for repairs, so he's going to be there for a while. Here is the replay. He goes to the inside, and that was never on. Unfortunately, a big impact there for Rafa Martins. The car is an absolute write-off. I wonder he's had to fast-track to the pit lane, so there was definitely contact there. Was it netcode? Let's see. No, there was contact. He hit that bump, didn't he? And it's very difficult to brake into Panakill Bend, because just as you hit the brakes, there's a big bump right the way across the width of the road. It unsettled Maloney's car and he went straight into the back of Rafa Martins, so sadly no repeat victory for Rafa, but of course he might be able to get back out there and start at the front for race number 2. What progress is Chris Lulham making? He's gained one position. Of course, that was at the expense of Martin, so he's not actually overtaken anyone yet. And part of the problem is that the drivers around him are quick. Alexei Nesov in front of him, he's been on the podium 3 times this season, so this is not going to be an easy overtake. They're both getting stacked up a bit here behind Nico Pino. Nesov moves to the left-hand side, Lulham goes to the inside, and he's going to go through. That was a nice move. There's a car running wide in front. That's Christian Mansell. So Christian Mansell could be losing ground here. Nico Pino goes up the inside. Chris Lulham tries to as well. Is there going to be room left? Just about through the apex of the corner. But Mansell's got the inside. No, through goes Lulham. So Lulham up another place now into 10th, because a couple of cars pitted. So he's actually got himself into the points. Oh, up the inside of Nico Pino down the Cooper straight. That was aggressive stuff. But oh, he's lost it. Chris Lulham goes around. There's contact with Pino. They're both into the gravel trap and into the tyre wall, and that was the risk that Lullen was taking. He had to get his elbows out, he had to start pushing and trying to move through the field, but there's always the risk that you go for an aggressive move and it does not work, and that was the end result. He rejoins, but he's back down to 15th now. It looks like it's hard to tell if he lost the rear himself or whether there was maybe some netcode contact there between the two of them. I'd like to see that again, actually, if possible, because Lullen loses the rear of the car going into the corner. Here it is, look, so he goes up the inside of Pino, two wheels on the grass down the Cooper Straight. He'll have dirt on his tyres from that. It's really impossible to tell whether he lost it on his own or whether maybe there was a bit of a netcode issue there with Pino. I'm sure that Dan Blake, our clerk of the course, will be watching on with interest. He'll be investigating that. But Chris Lullen now, is he going to have to pit again? Surely he will. Much point in him touring around there with a damaged car. If he pits and finishes last, at least he'll start on pole on the second race later on. He's limping through the final corner, and is he heading for the pit lane? Yes, he is. So Chris Lullen, for the second time in this race, is in the pit lane with damage. This time after contact there, or possible contact after a spin, and then contact with Nico Pino, who's also in the pits. Luke Whitehead is in too, so they're starting to drop like flies here. This is reminding me a bit like of the first visit to Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit earlier on this season, where again we had quite a high retirement rate. Have been given some fast repairs to use though, so since he was able to get back to the pit lane under his own steam, he's able to use a fast repair and get back out there without losing a lap. So should we get another safety car, we'll be right back into it. Browning, though, is continuing serenely on his way. He leads the field through Surtees corner. He's a second clear of Jonathan Hoggard, who is a further second ahead of Zane Maloney. So Luke Browning definitely has a healthy buffer here over his nearest rivals. Verone is fourth and has just set the fastest lap of the race, with James Headley rounding out the top five. They come through Clearways and Clark Curve once again, and they go on to the sixth lap of the race. Luke Browning on course for 25 championship points. Here's the fight going on for fifth place. Meanwhile, James Headley just ahead of Alex Connor. Alex Connor ran really well here on the first visit that we had to Brands Hatch, but unfortunately had some late contact, I believe, with Zane Maloney at Paddock Hill Bend. I seem to recall it being a similar incident to the one Maloney's just been involved with going into Paddock a lap or so ago. So Alex Connor, well familiar with that. He did get one of two top five finishes, though, in that the second race at Brands Hatch earlier this season. He got another fifth place finish at Silverstone last time out. So Alex Connor has definitely been coming on stronger. There's Zane Maloney, meanwhile, just ahead of Nico Verone. Verone, a race winner earlier on at Brands Hatch as well. He won the reverse grid race here on the Indy circuit a few weeks ago. So Nico Verone also been competing in the British Formula 3 eSports Championship as well to great success. Finding it a bit harder here, though, in the Formula 4 Championship. He's not been a pace setter, that's for sure, although he's been one of the top five quickest drivers, realistically, every round so far. And he's cruising in now on the possibly wounded Zane Maloney, although I can't see much damage, if any, in front of Zane Maloney's car. Sullivan has just headed to the pit lane, I can see on the timing screens. He's been off the road, I believe, and Graham Sesford has found us a replay to explain what happened to Zach O'Sullivan. Here we're going to see it's out the back of the circuit. And back. Unfortunately, he just loses it on his own. So Zach O'Sullivan losing it on his own, and lots of damage done. So he's had to head for the pit lane as well, which is a shame. So Zach O'Sullivan not out of the race, although he's not yet rejoined. The deal is that if you fast track back to the pit lane, so if you press a button that sends you straight back to the pits regardless of where it is you've had the accident, then you're not eligible to use the fast repair. But if you limp back around with the damage and drive into the pit lane under your own steam, then you can. Verone in there with a really late lunge up the inside of Zane Maloney. This is the fight for a spot on the podium here between Maloney and Verone. Verone's had two podiums, one of which was that win at Brands Hatch. The other one was a second place finish in the reverse grid race at Alton Park. Zane Maloney finally got his first podium in the second race at Silverstone. So they've both had podiums. Maloney looking for his second, though. He won't want to give away this third position without a fight. Verone is about 2 seconds clear of James Headley and Alex Connor, who are still locked in combat for fifth position as well. So it's the line we go once again then. The fight for third spot is the battle right now, really. The top two seem fairly secure where they are. I don't think Hoggard is going to push too hard to chase after Luke Browning anyway, because they are Fortec teammates. Fortec definitely looking good for the teams championship as well. We were awaiting official confirmation coming into this final round of whether or not Fortec had won the teams championship. It all kind of depended how many Carlin drivers turned up, but I'm pretty sure they are looking very good indeed for the championship as far as the team's championship is concerned. Here is a Carlin driver. Marion Kramer's trying to go around the outside of the Arden machine of Fred Lubin. This is for 7th place, and they are millimetres apart coming out of Surtees, not even inches separating them there. But Marion Kramer's forces the issue, holds the inside line now for Hawthorne corner. The corner you want to be stuck on the outside for, but Fred Lubin, oh, there we go, there's contact. Lubin off heavily into the barriers, and well, you could kind of see that coming, really, couldn't you? I haven't even finished saying that you don't want to go around the outside there. Here's the replay. Hard to tell from this angle who moves on who, but there's definitely contact. Lubin is the one that ends up nerfed into the barriers at very, very high speed. So the Arden driver, here we go. Well, in fairness, looks as though he leaves room there, but it's very difficult to run side by side through that corner. Fred Lubin, sadly, ends his penultimate race of the season in the tyre wall. Back to Luke Browning then, race leader, turns his way through Druid's corner. This he's just had the fastest lap, actually, 1 minute 16.81. It's the new fastest lap of the race. No bonus points for fastest lap, though, but he's just sort of promoting now, and he's in a rhythm, clearly. This fight for third, though, is further intensifying now. Verone might have a go here on the brakes into Surtees. He does have a go. Maloney saw him coming and swooped down the outside instead. He gives up some time on the entry to the corner. There's more momentum off the turn. Verone then is going to try and get back in that slipstream into Hawthorne. He had a look down here a lap ago. Maloney sees it coming again, moves to the inside, and Nico Verone sensibly chooses not to go around the outside. Instead, he focuses on the exit speed again, gets up the inside into Westfield and moves into third place. Runs a bit wide on the exit though. Maloney might try and fight back, but he can't get there. So Nico Verone is back into a podium place, and that knocks Maloney down to fourth. The other effect this has had is that it's brought James Headley onto their tail. Headley is only half a second behind right now, so James Headley catching these two as a result of their battling. He's stretched the gap to Alex Connor now to about a second, so Connor not quite able to live with the pace of James Headley, who's on for one of his better results of the season so far. He's running in 5th position so far as James. Yeah, he's not had a top 5 all season. In fact, he's only scored points in 2 races, and they were a pair of 7th place finishes earlier on in the season. There is Chris Lulham then. He is running down in 11th. So, of course, the other thing that could happen here is that if other people have issues, he could end up getting into the points anyway, because he's running at 11th. He's 11 seconds behind Abby Pulling. If one more driver within the top 10 goes off the road and has to pit, though, he well be able to get himself into the points anyway, and even 1 or 2 points here could make all the difference. He's clearly pushing on, so he's not just settling for 11th here and thinking about the grid positions for race 2. He's pushing hard to try and catch Abby Pulling, but he's not really catching her all that rapidly just now. In front of him, I think, is Luke Whitehead, who is a few laps down after a pit lane visit earlier on, so he is not the position, the black car you can see in the distance. Used for Fortec, though. I have now had it officially confirmed to me by Damien Meaden that Fortec have wrapped up the team's championship. There are not enough Carlin drivers entered into this final round that they could possibly outscore Fortec. So Fortec at least know that they've got the team's championship in the bag. That might just free up their 2 drivers to really race each other now as well for the championship, because they have been working so well together as a team all season. And with the team's championship sorted, no reason now really not to let them race and try and fight out the championship between them. The irony is really that it's unlikely to be decided by a wheel-to-wheel battle in the 2, really, because they are topping and tailing the field right now, and they're likely to do so again for race number 2. We're into the final few minutes of the race then, under 3 minutes left to go, and we're following here that group of cars fighting the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. Third place, the red car, Verone. The blue and yellow in 4th is Zane Maloney. The grey car is James Headley. And then the red and white Arden car is Alex Connor at the back of the train. 4 different teams here as well, because remember, Nico Verone is an independent driver, a privateer driver, definitely the highest placed of the privateers in the championship this season. The next best privateer is Alexei Nesov, who is 7th place in the championship, despite having missed the first couple of rounds of the championship. The right-hander at Westfield into Surtees corner, and James Headley starting to look more menacing now in the wing mirrors of Zane Maloney, who was the champion in the 2019 British Formula 4 Championship. Sealed the deal in a dramatic finals day here on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, so he knows all about wrapping up titles around this particular 2.3 mile racetrack in championship contention today. But as I said, there was this interesting battle going on for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth in the championship between O'Sullivan, Kramers, Verone, and Hoggard. And it's Hoggard and Verone, the two that were furthest back in that group, who are doing the best right now, because you've got Verone up there in third, Hoggard running second, but then for O'Sullivan and Kramers, they've had definitely different fortunes, haven't they? Kramers is only 7th, and O'Sullivan down in 13th isn't going to score anything. So Zach O'Sullivan, who is third in the points, could lose that third place, or at least be in danger of losing it going into the final race based upon these results. I'll try and get the maths done between races as far as might be third in the championship. It's not just the overall championship that's worth fighting for here, although that's what the big prize is up for, that free entry into a round of the 2020 British Formula 4 Championship. The battle that is going on behind them in the championship for pride, if nothing else, is still definitely worth keeping an eye on. Pino, I'm seeing, has been given a drive-through penalty for the contact with Chris Lulham. So it was obviously decided that Pino did hit Lulham at Surtees, and that's what spun the championship leader off the road. So Nico Pino has been given a drive-through penalty. It matters little. He's already a lap down in 16th place, but just a message from Dan Blake, our clerk of the course, that it was spotted and appreciated, and he's been given a penalty as such. That, I'm sure, will be not that much of a relief for Chris Lulham. It doesn't help him at all. The damage is still done, but there's every chance that Lulham could still bounce back in that second race. The one thing we do know pretty much, though, is that this is likely to go down to the wire, because Luke Browning is on his final lap of the race now. He's on course for those 25 juicy championship points, and his teammate and championship rival Chris Lulham doesn't look likely to get into the top 10 now, so the gap will be 11 points provisionally heading into the final race, and it will be in Browning's favour, but he will be starting deep in the field. Lulham will be somewhere towards the front, but he might not be right at the front of the grid. I think Lulham's going to be starting somewhere around where he started this race, so they're both going to be in the danger zone, really. But this was the first objective for Luke Browning, really. He had to try and win this first race, and that is what he is about to do. This will also crucially break the tie break between himself and Chris Lulham. He will have one more win now than his championship leader, and he'll lead the points into the final race of the season. Luke Browning wins it then at Brands Hatch. Second place for Hoggard. It is a Fortec 1-2. Not the first time we've seen that this season. Nico Verone is third, and fourth place does go to Zane Maloney. James Headley was fifth and Alex Connor sixth, and all the places changed at the end, although they were pretty close to each other at the checkered flag. Marion Kramer seventh. Christian Mansell was eighth from the back. That was a good drive. Ninth place for Alexei Nesov, and Abby Pulling rounded out the top 10. Here is Chris Lulham. I say Pulling was rounded out the top 10. She hasn't actually got to the flag yet. She is still 7 seconds ahead of Chris Lulham. The gap has come down by about 3 or 4 seconds, actually, since Lulham came back out onto the track, but just didn't have enough time, ultimately, to catch Abby, who is now coming across the start-finish line. So Pulling classified in 10th, Lulham classified in 11th, and will not get the championship points. That is 2 races in a row now that Chris Lulham has failed to score, and only 2 season which he has failed to score anything. So that is, again, that momentum just starting to shift maybe now back in the favour of Luke Browning. As the result then of our penultimate race of the season, where have these last 7 weeks gone? Luke Browning with the race victory then, Jonathan Hoggard in second position, Nico Verone in third, Zane Maloney fourth, and James Headley rounding out the 5 with Alex Connor 6th, Marion Kramer 7th, Christian Mansell in 8th, then Alexei Nesov was 9th, with Abby Pulling taking the final championship point in 10th. And Chris Lulham was 11th, doesn't score any points. Zach O'Sullivan 12th, doesn't score any points. So those two who were first and third in the championship, respectively, both losing out. Then it's Nathan de Villiers 13th, Rafa Martins 14th, Fred Lubin 15th, Nico Pino 16th, Luke Whitehead in 17th. Although I'm hearing now Nico Pino has been disqualified from that race because he didn't serve his drive-through. So I mentioned a few laps ago he was due to serve a drive-through penalty. He didn't serve it, and so he has been eliminated, or disqualified, I should say, from the race result. No. All of that sets us up rather nicely, I think, for that second race later on. As I said, provisionally, it looks as though an 11-point advantage will go the way of Luke Browning, but with the reversed grid, it's not over yet. It's going to be a matter of survival, I think, for both of those two. They've just got to stay out of trouble and make progress at the same time as well, which is easier said than done. A really, really intense start to our second race and the final race of the season. But our top 3 drivers with us now. Luke Browning joins us here on the podium. Well, Luke, That was exactly what the script set out for you, really, didn't it? You qualified on pole position again, you led off the line, and you won by 2.5 seconds. You made it look easy.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a chilled out race for me. That so got something stuck in the back of my throat. Just went down the
You're right.
Yeah, no, that was a good race. Well, for me anyway. I know. I think Chris is that. It's really, really unfortunate she's been taken out there. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what the championship standings are now. But I might be leading. I'm not sure. Going into the last race, but obviously he'll be starting away ahead. So the second race is always a roll of the dice. So yeah, but it's very exciting. It's come down to the last race for everyone. And yeah, I think I can't really wait to get it started.
We've got you visually about 11 points ahead, and that isn't actually now being confirmed to me. So you're 11 points ahead of Chris coming into this second race. But of course, the flip side of that is that you now start a long way behind him. He finished 11th in that one, so he's going to be 10 places ahead of you. You don't have to beat him, but you do have to stay out of trouble, don't you? So what's the game plan going into this second race?
Yeah, I mean, say if he finishes first, I have to finish third, don't I? So yeah, as long as I've got to finish sort of within 2 places of him, and then that sort of increases times every 3 as he goes down the grid. But yeah, I mean, anything could happen really. It's the same situation. I think I can't remember, was it Silverstone halfway through the season, and yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit anxious to just get this race out of the way, and then yeah, we'll sort of see what's going on. I can't really get my words together at the moment.
I was going to say, you do, for the first time all season, sound a little bit nervous. We've said all along that this might not be, the cars might not be real, but the racing very much is. And actually kind of refreshing to hear a few nerves in your voice, because this really matters. It's a free entry into a round of the championship, and there's a lot of pride at stake as well.
Exactly, yeah. This is the inaugural Sim Championship, and it's getting ever bigger. I think people will look back on this and be like, wow, that was the first year ever that it was properly taken into production properly. And yeah, so it'd be an extreme achievement to win it. If it's me or Chris, it'll be it'll be incredible achievement. And the entry into one of the rounds is incredibly useful as well. I think it's equal to about 1,800 quid, to put that into perspective to the viewers. So it's certainly worth sweating about.
Well, I'm sure you'd much rather be composing yourself than sat here napping to me, but hopefully we'll be talking to you again after race 2. Best of luck for the finale.
Cheers, thank you very much.
I mean, then your race winner and championship leader going into the final round of the championship. Second place for Jonathan Hogarth, that one. And Jonathan, pretty uneventful race for you, but actually, given some of the shenanigans you've been involved in this season, I bet that was a bit of a relief.
Yeah, a bit of a better qualifying that one. Managed to pull it out of the bag and get on P2, and then it was just a case of not being too crazy when the safety car came out. Thinking about just sticking behind Luke, because it's going to be pretty impossible to try and overtake anyway, and he's so fast that he's likely going to try and pull away, which he did do. So yeah, it was a good race.
You're right in the thick of this battle for kind of third and fourth in the championship, and you came out by far the best in that. I haven't done the maths yet, but is that at all on your mind going into race 2, or are you just kind of there to help your teammates? They're both, of course, still fighting for this championship.
Yeah, I think I'm not really too focused on the championship at the minute. I think it would be great if we could get 1, 2, 3 in it, but I think it's just going to try and avoid the carnage that's most likely going to happen in this next race, starting from the back. There's going to be most likely going to be a couple of spinners or something like that, so it's just working my way around it.
Best of luck for it anyway, and nice to see you on the podium again. That's your 4th podium visit of the season, and 3 of them have come in the second half of the year as well. So you're definitely on the up in the second half of the season, and let's see if you can get another one in race 2.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hogarth then gets himself on the podium once again, and coming home in third, Nico Verone, who joins us again on the podium as well. Nico, we haven't seen you on the podium for a while. I think it was Alton Park the last time that you got into the top 3. You really had to fight for that one as well. Zane Maloney was not an easy man to overtake.
Hi guys, yeah, it was a really difficult race. On qualifying on my last lap, that it was the best one, I made a mistake, so I qualified P5, but I could make it into the top 3. And then in the start of the race, I managed to do a good start, get into P4, And yeah, then the safety car came out, and I had a good restart, but in the first corner, I think Maloney hits Martin, and he went like in front of me. I was very lucky that he didn't hit me. So Maloney went into third, and I was fourth. And in Brand's really difficult to overtake, so I prepared the overtake like 3 corners or 4 before. So yeah, it was a really nice move. I'm really happy about that, and managed to take P3.
And you're right in the thick of the fight now as well for third in the championship. I think you're only about 5 points behind Zach O'Sullivan. You're tied on points with Jonathan Hoggard. So I guess that's the challenge now, isn't it, to try and break into the top 3 in the points in this final race?
Yeah, so obviously it is the maximum that we could achieve, P3 in the championship. So I hope we have a good race, clean race, and we can fight for P3. The Ford Tech boys are 1-2, and they were really fast with the championship. So it's impossible to catch them. Mathematically, it's impossible, but P3 is still a good result. So we are going for that.
Excellent. Well, best of luck for race number 2, and maybe we'll be speaking to you again later on tonight.
Thank guys. Hope so. Cheers.
Look then, Nico Verone. And the final person we want to talk to is Chris Lulham. He wasn't on the podium, unfortunately. In fact, he was out of the points. Second race in a row. But Chris, thank you for taking some time to come and have a chat with us. That didn't go to plan. That much is obvious. But all you can do now, I suppose, is just brush that off. You're going to be starting ahead of Luke for race 2. Not over yet, is it?
No, it's not over yet. But I'll see what I can do. I really just got involved in two collisions that I out of my control, and yeah, that happened. So I'll see what I can bring back in the next race.
First one in particular was really unfortunate, wasn't it? It looked to us like Zach just lost it in front of you, and there's nowhere to go. You've got to have lightning quick reactions, and there was just no chance to avoid him.
Yeah, Zach lost the car going into the corner, and he locked up the brakes to try and stop the car from spinning around. But obviously, I was following right on his back, on his gearbox. And yeah, I had nowhere to go at the moment at that time, but the safety car got me back in the race. But then again, involved in another incident that was completely out of my control.
It's unfortunate, and it's not the way that we wanted to see the championship decided, and it's not decided yet. That's the key thing here. You've got to try and win the race, I guess. If you can win the race, then that forces Luke to get on the podium. If he can't get on the podium, then you could still steal it from him. So what's the sort of mindset coming into this second race? We just spoke to Luke. He's a little bit apprehensive about it all. Are you a bit more relaxed now that you've got nothing to lose?
I wouldn't say more relaxed, no. It's just I'll see where I can do. I don't actually know where I'm starting. I think around P5. But that'll definitely give me the advantage over him. But yeah, I think I have a good chance at a top 3 if nothing goes wrong.
Well, there you go then. That's the target. Best of luck, mate. It's been fascinating watching you two all season. We're all very glad that it's come down to the final race. I'm sure you're not, but go out there, put on a show, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Lulham there then, losing the championship lead, but it's not over yet. He will be 11 points behind his teammate Browning with 25 still available. We will have all of the build-up for our final race of the season few minutes time here on Year One Racing TV. It's been a fascinating season. It all boils down to this: 20 minutes of racing around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Don't go anywhere. Race 2 coming up very shortly.
The team at Momentum Social has a strong history in the Toka paddock, and this is our second season working with the British Formula 4 Championship, providing video and creative services. As the first rung on the ladder towards Formula 1, the British Formula 4 Championship is pivotal in the young driver's racing career. Working with the championship, we wanted to give fans an exclusive look into what a race weekend is like from the driver's perspective, with behind-the-scenes access and exclusive content. Now in collaboration with Year One TV and Jacob Ebury Photography, we're helping to bring you the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, which has already seen some great racing so far this season. Can't wait to see you at the next one.
Welcome back, everybody. You can feel the tension in the air here as we prepare for the final round of the inaugural British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. The sun is setting on the Kent racetrack. It's also setting on what has been a hugely successful first ever season for the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. They said all along they were sort of dipping their toe in the water as far as this whole esports iRacing thing goes, and I think generally speaking the feedback has been brilliant. The support has been excellent from all of the drivers and teams, and who knows, we may see some more Formula 4 iRacing action in the very near future. For now though, we are focusing on the very, very near future. The next half an hour or so will decide who wins the championship. Either Luke Browning or Chris Lulham will walk away from this next race as the champion. They will walk away with a free entry into a round of the 2020 British Formula 4 Championship, which, as Luke Browning was telling us, is worth about £1,800, which is not a small amount of money. And they are both drivers that were looking to race in the championship this year as well. So that will be a really, really worthwhile prize for both drivers, and of course the pride of winning the first ever one of these British Formula 4 iRacing trophies. I'm joined for probably the final time this season by Damien Meaden, the Media and Public Relations Manager of the British Formula 4 Championship. Damien, thank you for taking some time out to join us. This is pretty much how you scripted it, isn't it? We're down to the last race. We've got two drivers who are only 11 points apart. Game on.
Andy, first of all, good evening, and I've not quite recovered from that race yet, but no, that's better than we could have scripted it, I think, and it's exactly the same as the Real World Series. You think you have an idea of what's going to happen, and then the script just gets completely torn up and thrown out the window. I mean, first of all, who would have predicted that we wouldn't have a Fortec front row lockout, because that's what we've had at virtually every round so far. And then for Lulham to be sixth and down in the pack, would not have predicted that. And then a couple of incidents that you just can't legislate for. Luke Browning does everything he needs to do and wins the race, and suddenly this has been completely turned on its head. He's gone from 14 behind to 11 in front with one race to go. Andy's at the back and Lulham's towards the front. I mean, you just cannot write drama like this.
This is the kind of thing we see all the time for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It's been a long time host of the championship finale for the British Formula 4 Championship, so it's what we were really hoping for. It's great to see these two drivers going toe-to-toe for the championship. They've been great sports all year long. They've both been real fans of this iRacing trophy and great supporters of it, and they've been the two quickest drivers all season long. So I think whoever comes out of this next race as the champion, there's going to be no denying the fact that they deserve it.
No, absolutely. I think if you were going to narrow it down to the two drivers who probably deserve to win it most, based just on the consistency, it would come down to these two. I know we've had some really great standout drives from, you know, the likes of Hoggard, from Nico Verone, Zach O'Sullivan. They've all had their moment in the spotlight, but I think if you were to narrow it down to the two drivers who have done this consistently the most over the course of the season, then I think on balance, yes, you would have to say the champion should be Luke Browning or Chris Lulham. But then when you actually narrow it down to those two drivers, it's almost impossible to pick between them who should win it. So I think, as you've been suggesting, I think whoever wins it tonight will be a worthy champion. But you know, I still wouldn't call this. I still think there's a sting in the tail left.
Well, more than likely, yes, given how the season's kind of progressed from start to finish. We're going into this reverse grid race now, and an interesting stat that I worked out whilst I was doing all of my pre-event prep work for this is that if you look at the average finishing position for these two, across the whole season it's identical. They both have an average finish of 4.7. In the race ones that we've had so far this season, it was 1.6 average for Lulham, 2.8 average for Browning, so Lulham definitely had the best average finish from the first race of each meeting. Race 2, though, Browning has the edge, an average of 6.3, an average of 7.8 for Lulham, but they both had 3 reverse grid races where they failed to make the top 5. So all of that information, it really is almost impossible to predict which of them is going to come out on top. The advantage possibly with Lulham based on his grid position, but yeah, it's going to be really, really intense final 20 minutes of action, exactly how we wanted this all to wrap up. It's been a great season, hasn't it, David? And as I was saying before you came on board, came into the commentary box, it's been really generating a lot of interest, a lot of positive reaction as well. From the championship's point of view, what's been your sort of takeaway from this toe in the water that you've made here into the world of esports?
Yeah, just to address the first bit about the race coming up, I think the key for Luke Browning is staying out of trouble on lap 1, and I think that's not specific to this championship. I think across lots of the iRacing series going on at the moment, I think that's the key theme you see, is that lap 1 is chaos. So if Luke Browning can stay out of the way of all of that, make up a few positions, and then start to get into a rhythm, then I think it's about how high can he get, because Chris Dullum could win the race. If Luke Browning makes the top 3, then it's all over anyway. So I think 3rd place is really where Luke needs to aim for. To go to the second point, what has this done for the championship? It's been fantastic for us. It's really given us something to rally behind and to focus on throughout all the difficult times everyone's going through at the moment. It's given us a chance to enjoy some racing, even if it is it's not quite the same, but I have to say, as somebody who didn't really watch esports until about 3 months ago, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the racing has been different in its own way, as of course it would be, but it's still kept all that same raw drama and action that we're used to seeing in the real world series. So yeah, I think very successful overall, and as I think you mentioned to everybody, it was very much a toe in the water for us, and I think it's been a good exercise, and it definitely gives us a lot of food for thought on how we could maybe do something similar in the future as well, even when we do get racing again.
Yes, which will not be that far away, thankfully. We're only a couple of months away from the start of the real world British Formula 4 Championship. All looking forward to seeing how that one goes. Thanks, Damien, for all of your input throughout the season. We're going to have to leave you now, though, because we're about to get into the race. Here is how the grid looks then. Luke Whitehead on pole as a result of the reverse grid. Rafa Martin second, Nathan de Villiers and Zach O'Sullivan row 2. I'll give you some headlines. Chris Lullum is 5th, Browning 14th. Now, the headlines that I can give you, because we're about to go racing already. The revs are starting to rise. Up they go, away we go, and Chris Lullum has made a good start, I can tell you already, ahead of Zach O'Sullivan, the man with whom he tangled on the opening lap of race 1. He's going around the outside of de Villiers for 3rd as well, and for Chris Lullum, he has to try and win this race. He's on the outside line, there's contact further back as well. Let's hope that didn't involve the championship either. Luke Browning, though, he's picked his way through it, and Luke Browning is 7th already. The safety car is out, but Luke Browning has had an absolutely demon start. He's gained himself 6 positions already, and he's into the top half of the field. It was a good start for Lullum as well, but he has not gained quite as many as his teammates has, and already the safety car out for contact further back. I'll be pulling Zane Maloney and Nico Pino, I think, have come together for the first couple of corners, and as a result, the safety car has been scrambled here at the start of the final race of the season. Here's what happened. Thing on the outside, loses it. She was the car that spun into James Headley, and Nico Pino gets involved in that as well somewhere, or that might have been Pino actually that she collected. Couldn't quite tell. Headley has lost ground as well. It's 67, it is James Headley. Then, oh yeah, she goes back into the pack. Look at Headley into Verone and Maloney as well. So that's because Headley damaged, probably had limited control over the car going up the hill into Druids. So there we go. More angles of the carnage at the start. More with Verone, and yeah, look, Headley just didn't have control of the car at that point. He'd been in the barriers, he'd been hit by a spinning Abby Pulling. Unfortunately, is the end of their races. But the good news for us, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, is that the championship contenders both got through that unscathed. The order will be, at the end of lap 1, Luke Whitehead the leader, Rafa Martin second. Could he repeat his race win, I wonder, from Silverstone in the reverse grid race last time out? De Villiers is 3rd. I'm 99% sure De Villiers hasn't had a podium so far in his limited time with us. No, he hasn't, so this could be a really, really good opportunity for him to get into the top 3. Lullum, though, is 4th. Now, as we were saying earlier on, if wins the race, Luke Browning has to be on the podium. So the target for Browning is to get into the top 3. As they're running right now, what would that mean, I wonder? Because for 4th position, which is where Lullum is running right now, he would score himself 12 points. He's 11 behind. So right now, as long as Browning's in the points, which he is, still take home the title. So the championship as it stands is going the way of Luke Browning, but if Lullum starts making more positions, Browning will have to do likewise. He can't afford to sit where he is. And yeah, confirmation now from Damien Meaden, whose calculator will have exploded, I think, by the time this race is finished. The standings as it is now, a 5-point advantage for Browning. But Browning could still gain places, so too, of course, could Chris Lullum. Good news as well, from my point of view, as a pure neutral in all of this, is there are no teammates involved here. Between Lullum and Browning, there are no other Fortec drivers. There's a Fortec driver in the shape of Jonathan Hoggard behind Luke Browning, but there are no teammates that could start being places away. There are no teammates that might start holding other people up deliberately. This is going to be a flat-out race between the two, and the battle is well and truly going to be on here between these two. They both have to start overtaking people. Lulham more urgently maybe than Browning. Browning's first target will be the Carlin pair of Marion Kramers and Christian Mansell. Christian Mansell, remember, had a bit of a tangle with Browning at Silverstone a week ago, so I'm sure those two will be wary of each other when they find themselves together on track. There's a replay of the start, and Luke Whitehead got off the line really well. There was no real change in the order in the top three. There went Lulham, looked round the outside, settled into fourth. There was a bit of wheel banging there with Nathan de Villiers, but de Villiers hangs tough on the inside. There's the accident in the background, and Lulham did well here to stay out of trouble. Now look at that, Rafa Martins did have a go around the outside of de Villiers there, but backed out of it. Now I don't know whether the safety car had been scrambled by that point. I think it might have been. But yeah, Chris Lulham not wanting to take too many risks there at the start of the race. Right on board now with Luke Browning as well. Now he makes an absolutely excellent start. 7 places gained from where he started in this race. Started 14th, he's into 7th place already. We're seeing he just cuts his way through. He's able to take advantage of some other people getting held up through the first couple of corners, and then there's a shunt just ahead of him as well through Druid, so that worked out quite nicely. Himself into 7th as we stand. Now, the battle that we had to watch for coming into this race was the fight for 3rd in the championship, and I've just been sent those updated points. It could not be closer. Zach O'Sullivan is currently 3rd in the championship on 115 points. 1 point ahead of
49 and 31.5 wave rounds.
On 112 and Verone on 110. So there are 5 points covering O'Sullivan, Guard, Kramers and Verone. 4th, 5th and 6th in the championship. Now, Zach O'Sullivan is currently running 11th, so he and Nico Verone, who is 12th, they're the two that are most likely to
Please allow car 49 to take the wave around.
As for the others, Jonathan Hoggard, of course, is running in 8th place, and Marion Kramers is 6th. So Kramers and Hoggard are the order than the others. Yeah, the other two definitely looking to try and get themselves into the points first of all. O'Sullivan and Verone to try and make sure that the
yeah, I can hear you. I am monitoring the
3rd place in the championship. So we're hearing in the background, we're not supposed to be, but it's an interesting insight anyway to what goes on in the clerk of the course's office, because Dan Blake is trying to get everyone who is due a wave around. Basically, the cars that are a lap down, he's trying to wave them past the safety car to back on the lead lap. Zane Maloney and Abby Pulling have both just been wave rounds to get back onto the lead lap, but I think we're ready to go racing this time. The lights, I believe, are out on the safety car. With about just under 3/4 of the race still to go, we are about to get back to racing conditions. So Luke Whitehead, the race leader, Rafa Martin 2nd, Nathan de Villiers is 3rd, and then Chris Lulham, who really needs to try and win this race. Given the progress that Browning's made already, a race win is absolutely necessary here. Lights go out, away they go, and Luke Whitehead gets into Paddock Hill Bend with a healthy cushion, nearly half a second clear of Rafa Martin's already. Real battle is the one for 3rd. Nathan de Villiers versus Chris Lulham, and de Villiers runs a bit wide there, coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, and Lulham dives to the inside into Druid's corner. That was a really committed lunge, but he was just a bit too far back to make it stick. Now he's on the outside into Graham Hill Bend. This is fraught with danger. Can't go around the outside. Cuts to the inside. There's a bit of contact between the two of them. Damage to the front wing of Lulham's car. That could be crucial because it will lose him front downforce. And and around goes de Villiers. Well, what on earth happened there? De Villiers loses control through Surtees. I thought for a horrified moment that Chris Lulham might collect him. He didn't. They all got through without contact, and Lulham is now on the podium. The trouble is that, of course, that also gained his teammate Luke Browning a position as well. So actually, it's not really helped Lulham at all. He's into 3rd. Browning is up into 6th. Off the road further back has gone Alex Connor in 8th position, and we ride on board with the championship leader Luke Browning. The two Carlin drivers right in front, Marion Kramers and Christian Mansell. Kramers is directly in front of us. Christian Mansell a bit further up the road. Those two seem to be working together to try and catch the cars in front. Right now, as far as I can tell, Luke Browning should still be in the catbird seat for the championship. Will be if Lulham gains any more ground, and I think Chris Lulham will gain some more ground because he is reeling in the top 2 very, very rapidly. He's only 0.3 of a second behind Rafa Martins now, and about to start challenging for 2nd. So as Luke Browning follows the Carlin drivers through Paddock Hill Bend, his teammate Chris Lulham is about to have a go for 2nd. Here comes Browning up the inside of Marion Kramers. That's a really lovely move made into Druid's corner. He really wants Jonathan Hoggard, his teammate, to come with him if possible, but I don't think Hoggard can make it stick. So now there is a car separating those two Fortec drivers. Browning into 5th. Lulham has to react, has to get up the inside of Rafa Martins into Surtees, which he does, and the Arden driver leaves him plenty of room. That was fair racing there. He will know that he's racing with one of the championship protagonists. He doesn't want to be the reason that Lulham ends up getting fired off the road. He will try and fight back, though, will Rafa Martins, down Pilgrim's Drop, but then backs off before they get to the corner. So Lulham now into second, and of course the further up the order you get, particularly once you're in the podium places, the bigger the difference in points between each position. You get 15 points for finishing third, you get 18 for finishing in second. That's an extra 3 points. If he can get the lead, though, that's worth another 7. That will get him 25, and that is when Luke Browning will have to get himself onto the podium. So Browning, I think, has to assume that Lulham might be able to win this race. He's already closing in on Luke Whitehead, so Browning is going to have to go on the attack. He needs to overtake at least 2 more cars to guarantee him the championship. As it stands, 3 points the difference. So the next overtake, whichever of the Fortec drivers it comes from, would be absolutely crucial here. Fastest lap for Chris Lulham. He was about 3/10 quicker than the race leader Whitehead that time. The gap stands at 0.8 of a second. We're on board though with Luke Browning, who is just 3 points ahead of Chris Lulham, his teammate, his season-long championship rival. He's not all over the back of Christian Mansell here, is he? Mansell's pulled away from him slightly in the first half of this lap. Drivers that had a few words after Silverstone last time out, after their contact, which in fairness didn't really benefit Browning at all either. It arguably cost him a chance to hold on to the championship lead coming into this final meeting of the season. Browning is still going to have to try and put that aside and find a way past Mansell as cleanly and as quickly as he can. Westfield they go then. Luke Browning in 5th spot right now. He's closing here. He's faster out the back of the track, isn't he? Using the slipstream to good effect as well. But where do you make the overtake? It's hard to pass out on the Grand Prix loop. The best opportunities are around the first half of the lap, and that is where Mansell seems a bit quicker. Browning is right with him, but Chris Lulham, I can tell you, has caught the race leader as well. So whilst this battle is going on, simultaneously, Luke Whitehead is coming under increasing pressure now from Chris Lulham at the front of the field. We'll see if Browning has a go here into Paddock Hill Bend. He's pulling to the outside. Christian Mansell defending the inside line. He won't go through on the entry then, but what about the exit speeds? Can he cut back up the inside? No! Mansell having none of it. He is really defending hard here from the championship leader, and this is holding Browning up. It's putting him further away from those all-important podium places. He cannot prise the door open here and find a way past Christian Mansell, who in fairness is perfectly entitled to defend his position. This would be a really good end to the season for Mansell if he can get himself a 4th place finish. He doesn't want to let Browning through, because that would also probably mean that Jonathan Hoggard came through as well. So he's going to defend this 4th position regardless of the fact that the man behind him is trying to wrap up a championship. Side by side again down towards Hawthorne. Browning having to put himself now into some much more dangerous positions than he wants to. He just can't get through, but he can't force the issue. It's got to be a clean pass. Contact now could rob him of the championship. He has to avoid banging wheels, damaging his front wing, damaging his suspension. He has to pick his moments. Right now, he is still going to take the championship by 3 points. Just needs to try and get past Mansell and set off after that podium drivers to absolutely make sure of it. And into clearways they go again. The leaders are only 0.3 of a second apart. Luke Whitehead being caught all the time by Chris Lulham. Lulham's kind of done the catching now, though, and can't quite find a way through. There they are. Look, nose to tail through Paddock Hill Bend. Now, put this into perspective. If Lulham gets past Whitehead, that gives him the championship lead. So this is a really important overtake, and that would force Browning to have to then really force the issue with Christian Mansell, who is just driving around the inside of the track. Look at the way he's holding them all up. They've been caught now by Alex Connor, Nico Verone, Alexei Nesov, Sacco Sullivan as well. This train of cars starting to form with Luke Browning, the championship leader, right in the middle of it. Up the inside goes Alex Connor to attack Jonathan Hoggard. That's not good news for Browning either, because he could be about to lose his wingman behind him. Connor, contact there between Connor and Hoggard, and Alex Connor rattles down the barriers on the left-hand side, amazingly saves it, but loses out. Verone goes through as we've had the change for the lead. Chris Lulham has taken the race lead, and with it, the championship lead. Chris Lulham is in position now, once again, to reclaim the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy Championship. Here's how he did it. Down into Surtees, just a really clean move, signalled it early. Whitehead saw him coming, and Chris Lulham has now gone through Where's Browning? Browning's off the road. Luke Browning's gone off the track on my timing screen. He's falling down the order. There he is. Luke Browning is off at Surtees corner, and that could be it. That could be the championship over at almost the exact moment that his teammate was taking the race lead. It's all gone wrong for Browning. Right, let's see what happens. Goes around the outside of Mansell. There's contact through Hawthorns. That loses in positions. Hogarth goes through. Verone goes through. Then Nessov is up the inside as well, and Luke Browning already then had lost some positions after a bit of contact from Christian Mansell. Then they go through Sheen Curve into Surtees. There's the further contact, surely there is. Oh, into the corner. I just lost sight of him, unfortunately, as he turned into the corner. There was contact with Zach O'Sullivan, I believe. So Zach O'Sullivan, who has come through all of that to take 4th position, because there's been a further shake-up somewhere. I think there's been some more carnage whilst we were watching that, because Zach O'Sullivan worked his way down to 4th. Alex Connor's off the track, and Browning is in the pit lane. Luke Browning in the pit lane, and that, I fear, is his championship done, because Chris Lullum has done the hard work. He's got himself into the lead of the race, and he's pulling away now, 1.2 seconds clear of Luke Whitehead. Chris Lullum then was already in a position to win the championship. Just to repeat, taking the race lead put him back in front on the points. Then it was really sealed with Luke Browning going off the road. He is out of the race. So Luke Browning, he's back in the race. Sorry, he's just rejoined. Still on the lead lap. So I suppose what he really wants now is a safety car, but I don't think he's going to get one. We haven't seen many safety cars after the first lap of races so far this season. There you can see he's almost a full lap behind his teammate Chris Lullum. And that, unfortunately, is, it looks like at least, the end of Luke Browning's championship hopes. What a shame it had to come to that, but he just couldn't find a way past Christian Mansell. Mansell was defending very, very heavily, and there was just that tiny bit of contact, but Browning had to put himself in that position. He had to look to the outside into Hawthorns because the inside was being defended. That was the risk he had to take. If it had worked, we'd be calling him a hero, because we'd be saying, right, that's it, he's into 4th, he could still get on the podium and win the championship. As it is, though, he ends up off the road. Oh, speaking of off the road, James Headley and Zane Maloney have had a spin and some contact up at Druids, and they're both rejoining. Headley in 11th, and Maloney's actually a lap behind him, or 2 laps behind him, so I'm not quite sure how they came together. We're seeing a replay here. And just contact coming through the middle of the corner, unfortunately. All a bit clumsy, but they will continue relatively undamaged, actually. Oh, hang on. Maloney's off again now. This is back to live pitch. He just got off again at Surtees, so that Boney versus Headley part 2, I wonder, because Headley was there again. They both rejoined together. We caught the end of that replay, unfortunately. I'm not sure if there was contact. Oh, well, yeah, I think there might have been. So we're hearing now drive through for James Headley, and I have to say, I can't really offer up a counter argument to that. That looks fairly blatant. So James Headley into the back of Zane Maloney, who goes off the back and into the pit lane, and into the lane very shortly will have to come Headley as well. Then into the final 4 minutes of racing. Chris Lullum is 1.3 seconds clear of Whitehead. He's not backed the pace off, but he's equally not pulling away from Whitehead anymore. Whitehead just set a personal best lap of the race, so too Rafa Martins in 3rd. So those two have been able to preserve their tyres pretty well to be running this sort of pace deep into the race. Lullum turns through Hawthorn, though. Whitehead there you can see in 2nd, with Martins only 0.8 of a second behind him, and Martins was 200ths slower than Whitehead on the previous lap, but on this lap I think the gap is coming back down again. O'Sullivan is 4th, never quite got to the bottom of how that happened, because it was Mansell that was 4th last time we saw, and then all of a sudden O'Sullivan's overtaken about 5 cars to get into 4th position. Kramer's is 5th, Jonathan Hogarth's 6th, Nessov 7th, and Nathan de Villiers 8th. Now I wonder what that all means for the fight for 3rd in the championship. Now that we've kind of almost sorted out who's going to be the champion, I wonder who will be in 3rd. It's looking good, I would say, for Zach O'Sullivan, yeah, because he was ahead of them anyway, and he is still ahead of Marion Kramers, Jonathan Hoggard, and Nico Verone, so I think that O'Sullivan would hang on to 3rd in the championship. Maloney, we're hearing, being given a drive through as well now. It's all kicking off in the final race of the season. Definitely got an end-of-term feel to it. And he's just set the fastest lap as well, possibly in anger as a result of everything that's happened earlier on in the race. The battle going on further back now. Nathan de Villiers here, going past Alexei Nessov across the start-finish line. That was a nice move, a much better exit from Clearways, and de Villiers into 7th position now. So Nessov oozing out, possibly with some damage to the front. Yes, no front, well, damage front wing there. So Alexei Nessov limping around. That's why he was so much slower off Clearways, but he's clearly decided to limp around the final few laps rather than head into the pit lane for repairs. There's Browning. Fastest lap, 1:16.01, but that's scant consolation, unfortunately, for the man who was leading the championship by 11 points coming into this race. But yeah, as it stands, he's going to lose out because Lulham is going to score those 25 championship points. That'll put him on 203 to Luke Browning's 189. So it'll be, 14 points, which was exactly what the margin was, of course, coming into the final two races. They both have the same results, a win and a non-points finish. So they are 14 points between the two of them, Lulham to Browning, getting that confirmed now as well. And we'll wait for confirmation what that means for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I can see the calculations going on at the moment, so we'll check back in on that in a moment. Lulham, though, is on probably his penultimate lap. I think he'll just about get around to the end of this lap before seeing the last lap board. It's in almost complete darkness now down Pilgrim's Drop. The sun very much has set now on the 2000 on the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Hasn't risen yet on the 2020 British Formula 4 Championship. Thankfully, that will begin, we hope, at the start of August with the rest of the British Touring Car Championship package. Donington Park, we're all very much looking forward to seeing these cars, or these drivers, many of them, out on track in the real world once again. It looks as though Chris Lulham is going to that free entry to a round of the 2020 Championship. He's got to do one more lap, though, of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit before he is crowned, because the time has not quite ticked down to 0, so he's going to get another lap in. This will be his 13th lap of the race, the final lap of the championship. And for Chris Lulham, things have worked out absolutely perfectly in the end. He didn't sound too happy after race 1, but he'll sound a bit happy when we talk to him after the second race. For third in the championship, O'Sullivan on 127 will be 9 points ahead of Jonathan Hoggard, and there's not much scope for Hoggard to improve on 5th place since he's 15 seconds behind Zach O'Sullivan at the moment. Then Marion Kramers will be on 114 and Nico Verone on 111. I don't think we're going to see any more changes there either, so I reckon that's how it's all going to work out, but we'll be able to run you through that after the race has finished. For now, though, it is all about Chris Lulham, who has scored himself 4 race wins already this season. He finished inside the points for the first 10 races of the season, the first 11 races of the season, excuse me. All looked as though it was starting to unravel at Silverstone last time out, when he had an 18th place finish and then an 11th place finish earlier on this evening. But now he does come into the final corner of the final lap, the final race of the championship. He will see the checkered flag, and Chris Lulham will win the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy in perfect fashion with a race victory at the championship decider. When the pressure was on, he was able to deliver. He started a few rows back on the grid, remember, but he was able to work his way into the lead of the race cleanly, efficiently, with minimal contact. He is the race winner, and he provisionally is your champion as well. Second place in the race goes to Luke Whitehead. That's a good result for him as well. Nice to see him on the podium. He was a late joiner into the championship. Rafa Martins is third, Zach O'Sullivan fourth. 5th place for Jonathan Hoggard, 6th Marion Kramers. Christian Mansell should come home in a 7th position, and he had a part to play in all of that, didn't he, with that contact he had with Browning. It wasn't the contact that put him off the road in the end, though. It was separate contact, we believe, with Zach O'Sullivan that put Browning off, but actual contact between Browning and Mansell definitely set off that chain of events, with Browning back in the pack. Contact into this corner ultimately was what cost him the championship. But Browning will come home a finisher. He will be in 12th position the end of the race. Luke Browning, that will be the 3rd time that he's finished outside of the points, and that's the one that made the difference. It's one more race outside of the points than Chris Lulham had, and it's the one that loses him the championship. But he's been a great sport all season, Luke Browning. He's been great to chat to after the races. He, I'm sure, will not be overly happy with how that's all worked out. That's motor racing for you. Just as we see in the real world, there's always that risk of a sting in the tail. Damien Meaden said it before the final race got underway. Sting in the tail this time, in the way of Luke Browning. The championship, though, and the race win goes to Chris Lulham. Luke Whitehead comes home in 2nd. Rafa Martins 3rd, with Zach O'Sullivan 4th and Jonathan Hoggard in 5th position. Marion Kramers was 6th. Christian Mansell in 7th. Nathan de Villiers dropped down to 8th, unfortunately, having run in the podium places early on. Alexei Nesov was 9th, and Nico Verone rounded out the points. And with that result for Verone, unfortunately, it's not quite enough to improve on 6th in the championship. Abby pulling 11th, Luke Browning 12th, and doesn't score any points. James Headley 13th, Nico 14th. Alex Connor and Zane Maloney, both unfortunately, were retirements. So that is it. That is the final race of the season completed, and we're waiting for our podium drivers to make their way up here, and the champion will be at the head of that queue. So provisionally then, the points round out with Lullum on 203, Browning on 189, a 14-point deficit in the end. Zach O'Sullivan will be third on 127, Jonathan Hoggard fourth on 118, and Marion Kramers rounds out the top 5 in the championship on 114 points. Let's speak to the champion then, shall we? Chris Lullum has joined the podium. Chris, congratulations. You are the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy champion. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the race was interesting with the darkness at the end, but yeah, I'm happy to.
You sound a bit lost for words. I mean, it's been a real up and down night, hasn't it? Did you honestly think when we spoke before this second race that you had as good a chance as you ended up having?
No, honestly, I didn't think I was going to come away like this, but yeah, no, luck was on my side this time, unlike it was in race 1. But yeah, it's been an up and down season for both me and Luke, but I've enjoyed the close fighting the whole way through.
It's worth pointing out as well that obviously Luke had contact in that race that meant he didn't score points, but about half a lap before that happened, you got the lead, you put yourself in a position where you were ahead in the points. So though there was some luck involved, you really earned it as well, and the move you made on Luke Whitehead was a good move as well. Had some contact earlier on though, hadn't you, as you were trying to work through the pack, and there must have been a few moments where you thought, oh no, not again.
Yeah, no, I had a little contact out of turn 3. I was trying to get a cutback on someone and it didn't quite work out. But yeah, I had a little moment then. I thought I had damage. I thought it was all over, but I think I got a bit lucky again. That race was quite lucky, but yeah, no, I had the pace to drive through 4 cars to win, so that was good.
You need some luck to win in motor racing. I think any racing driver will tell you that, but you also have the speed all season long as well. I mean, you won lots of races. You were consistently on the podium. I think we said way back at probably week 1 or 2 that it's that consistency that can ultimately win you a championship. And it kind of did, didn't it? Because you had that buffer going into Silverstone. You were a few points ahead of Luke as a result of your consistency earlier on, which meant you could kind of get away with a couple of bad races. So it's really important to bank those points early.
Yeah, for sure. The whole season, it was about scoring consistent points, getting on the podium race 1, getting as many points as possible race 2, and yeah, I think I was in the points for every single race apart from race 1 last race and race 2 at Silverstone. But yeah, the consistent is what won me for sure.
And what it wins you is a free entry into the 2020 or a round of the 2020 British Formula 4 Championship. Now, I think your plans already were sort of orientated towards the British Formula 4 Championship. Just tell us a bit about what this prize means to you, though. Obviously, it's a decent sum of money that's worth, and it gives you that leg up now to get onto the real world grid and prove to everyone what you can do.
Yeah, for sure. There's a chance I could do one race. I'm not sure yet, but hopefully I can be seen on the grid this year, at least one round.
Yeah, we would love to see you out there because you are someone that has quite a lot of iRacing experience, and it would be nice to sort of see how you got on out there, I think, in the real world championship, what you can kind of take across from iRacing and whatnot. It's been fascinating watching you, though. It's been a brilliant fight between you and Luke all season long. Come out on top, though. Well done on the championship win.
Thank you for the series, and it's a good race.
Enjoyed bringing it all to you, Chris, and we'll speak to you again very soon, I'm sure. Chris Lullum then is your champion at the end of the season. In second place in the race was Luke Whitehead, and Luke was someone that didn't have to worry about scoring points or fighting for a championship. What he really wanted was to win a race. Luke, it wasn't quite a race win, but still a really, really good performance there for second. I'm hearing Luke, unfortunately. Luke, can you hear me? Luke, I think he's hitting the on-off switch, I think, on his microphone. We'll try one more time. Luke, have you got us? Of technology. All right, well, we'll try Luke again after maybe, but for now, we'll move on to our third place finisher, Rafa Martins. Rafa, podium once again, and it's been a nice end to the season for you, hasn't it? You got that first win at Silverstone, and here you are back on the podium again at Brands Hatch. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the whole two races I think was very good to me. The first one, the crash wasn't very good, but like the qualifying, I did a very good job, P3. So yeah, it was a shame the crash on race one, but again I got a second chance on race two, and then yeah, just Lulhan was very quick, but I think at the end I was trying to catch the guys in front, but I was not able to get close enough to have a chance to overtake. But yeah, P3 is fine. I'm happy with that, and I'm very happy with my progress during this iRacing season. So yeah.
Yeah, and we've enjoyed watching you as well, and I think we said this to you at Silverstone last time. It's been nice to see improving in pace and in confidence as well. It's quite a tricky thing to jump into and learn, especially when you're doing it against people that have been doing this for years and years. It's not easy, is it, to be competitive straight away?
No. Like I said last time at Silverstone, I started in iRacing in February, basically when the season started. So everything is still new for me. It is similar at the same time it's not similar. So it takes a lot of time for you to get used to the car, to the tire, to how the iRacing works. But yeah, I think at the end of this season, I'm getting to a point that I'm quite happy. I think it's still a little 1 or 2 attempts that I'm back from the top runners, but I'm getting there. I think on the next season, on the next championship, I'm gonna be there fighting with the guys.
We are very much looking forward to that. Well done on another podium and a really strong end to the season, Rafa.
Thanks guys, but thanks very much.
Martin's then in third position. We're going to have another go, I think, at speaking to Luke Whitehead. Let's drag him in. Luke, can you hear us this time? Oh, he's trying. Luke, are you there?
Hello.
There we go. Well,
Yes,
you found the on button,
it
did
works.
you? I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that
great.
struggles with this technology thing. It can be a bit of a challenge on it. Thankfully, you were a bit handier racing your car in that race, weren't you? Another really good result in second place. Well done.
Yeah, I think I should just stick to the day job. To be honest, I don't think tech is my thing. But no, I'm absolutely ecstatic with it. To be honest, considering we've only had the sim a month, and like considering how much of a struggle we had in Silverstone, we were miles and miles and miles off. So I'm just ecstatic that we've made such big gains. You know, we've been working hard all week, trying to get quicker and quicker and quicker, and I'm glad to see that it's paid off.
Considering you've only been around for the last few rounds, the fact you've had 2 podiums has got to give you some real confidence, hasn't it? And I mean, I think we said last time that you've caught a few people's attention. It's sometimes nice to come into a season halfway through and immediately be on the pace, and that's what you've been able to do, which is even more remarkable given your lack of iRacing experience.
100%. I mean, I like to think that I had the pace to challenge with Chris, but I mean, I made it quite easy for him. I didn't want to be the one to, influence the championship results in the end. But yeah, as I say, it's just awesome to be able to be challenging up the front so quickly and so soon.
Yeah, well, and once Chris passed you, you were lapping pretty much the same sort of pace as he was as well. So yeah, I think you proved your point there. Have you caught the iRacing bug now? Then are we going to see you out racing elsewhere?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I haven't got much to do besides be on the sim. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. So I don't see myself, leaving anytime soon. So hopefully you'll see me in many more races. Hopefully up the front like this one.
That's the plan anyway, isn't it? Well, we hope we do. You've been a great addition to the British Formula 4 iRacing trophy, and yeah, well done on another podium.
All right, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Stuff. There we go. Then Luke Whitehead. We finally got to speak to him. Second place. Excuse me, on the podium in that race. One more person, though, I think that we really have to talk to, and it's for every feel-good story, there's always the person that was on the other end of it. And Chris Lullum ends up with the championship. Luke Browning ends up coming up just short. Luke, it's never nice to see a championship contender off the road in the final race of the season, but you were under so much pressure and right in the thick of all of the action there, stuck behind Christian. Really unfortunate how that race ended for.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Chris, what a deserved winner. I mean, he did an absolutely brilliant job all season. It's been so tight, and that sort of racing has been absolutely awesome with him. So, yeah, it's been absolutely phenomenal to race with him and be so close. And I've really enjoyed the championship. And yeah, big thanks to you guys and British F4 for organising it.
It's well, we want to thank you all, really, all the drivers who have come around and given it a go. Many of whom didn't have a lot of experience of esports competition. It's been nice to see everyone sort of clubbing together, and interesting to see a few drivers that had never done this before really starting to come on strong towards the end of the year. You, though, were there right from the word go. You won 2 of the first 3 races of the season. You've ended up with more race victories than, or you and Chris have ended up with more victories than anybody else. So handy at this thing, it turns out, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly enjoyed it. Like you said, it was a bit of a shame about that last race, but yeah, that's just racing, really. And yeah, I can't really say much more than that. But you know, that's what it is. And like I said before, really happy for Chris and the team. You know, it's a 4-Tech 1-2 and a team's championship at the end of the day, so it's good fun.
I believe that your plans were definitely to try and race in British Formula 4 again this year. So you never know. You might have Chris for company out on the racetrack again with that free entry he's just won.
Yeah, that'd be good fun. I'd love to see him in 4-Tech, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be pushing each other on as usual.
Stuff. Well, thank you so much for everything you've done throughout the season. It's been great fun watching you too. Commiserations for the way it ended, but second place, it's not all bad, is it?
No, it's not too bad.
Luke Browning, then we'll let you go off and chill out and relax, I think. But a gracious second place finisher in the Luke Browning, and that then is now pretty much it. We welcome into the box once more to sort of give us some of his final thoughts for the season. Damien Meaden from British Formula 4. Well, it was always going to be an intense final race, wasn't it, Damien? A shame to see what happened to Luke Browning there, but he understands this is racing. This is what can happen, and he was in such a pressure cooker environment in that race. It was always going to be a job just to stay out of trouble, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and Luke definitely did not have the easier of the 2 races there. I know Chris put in a fantastic drive to come through from, was it 5th to lead and then win the race, so he did a sublime job. But I think the cards were stacked a little higher against Luke there. Did really well to get as far up as he did, took full advantage, and he did exactly what we said. He stayed out of all the lap 1 chaos. It ended up happening a few laps later than that when perhaps we weren't expecting it quite so much. But as you said, a very gracious second place finisher. Was really impressed with how he's just handled himself there. Given a really mature response, I think, to finishing as runner up. And he's right in saying Chris is a deserved winner, but I think it could have gone to either of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've been inseparable on the stats all season, haven't they? They've had 5 wins each. They've had almost the same amount of podiums each as well throughout the season. I think 4-Tech have got a real talent on their hands there with Chris Lulham, and it would really be nice to see him get the use of that free entry into a round of the championship, because I think he could trouble some of the front runners if he gets a bit of seat time in the Formula 4 car. I think he could be up there, couldn't he?
He did well last year. He came in at Silverstone towards the back of 2019. At this point, he was up against guys who had, well, let me do some quick maths, 24 race starts, if not 54, if they'd done a second season. So he was up against some people who were, a lot more experienced than he was, and we're not even counting test days. And he was, fighting for points. Came away with a top 6 in one of the races. So he's shown he's got the potential in the real world car. And like you said a couple of times, it'd be great to see him out on the circuit in the real world this year. 4-Tech, I think, have got a very strong lineup, and with Browning on their hands, they've got one of potentially 3 title contenders in their awning, so they're looking really strong for this year. I think Lulham would only add to that, but having said that, I wouldn't want to call the real world series when that starts in 7 weeks' time, because I think that looks even closer than this has been.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all really itching to see the cars back out on the track. As I said, the start of August is championship's due to kick off at Donington Park. We're all very excited for that. Who else has caught your eye? We've spent a lot of tonight talking about Chris Lulham and Luke Browning, quite rightly. They've been fighting for a championship, but who else have you sort of had your eye on? There are a few nice feel-good stories, aren't there? Jonathan Hoggard's really improved as the season's gone on. Alexei Nesov, out of nowhere, literally missed the first couple of rounds and then was straight on the podium at Silverstone. I think this has been a great opportunity for a few new names that we're not that familiar with to really set their stall out and show everyone what they can do.
Yeah, Alexei Nesov is the one that springs to mind you've just mentioned there. I was thinking to myself this morning when I was going over my notes before today, if he'd done the whole season, he probably would be up there in championship contention if you look at how his results have gone, purely based on how he's done since he joined a couple of rounds late. So he's done really well. I think other drivers have stood out. I think for sheer persistence and improvement, I've got to give a shout out to Sebastian Priaulx. I think had a really, a huge amount of bad luck at the start of the season. First couple of events just couldn't get a break, and held in there and really started to see an upturn in results as it went on. He couldn't race tonight because he's preparing for Virtual Le Mans, so we wish him the best of luck with that. And I think it's been great to see a few people like Nico Verone, who's on the verge of winning F3's iRacing Championship, come in. It's been great to see some of our drivers for this year, like Zach O'Sullivan, as you say, mixing it with some of the alumni like Jonathan Hoggard. So I think just a really nice exercise, and it's great to see drivers from past, present, future, and not at all come together in one place and really slug it out for those race wins, podiums, points. So yeah, it's been great.
Really has, and we want to thank you, Damien, as well, for all your work you've been doing. Not in the spotlight necessarily, but you've been putting everything together behind the scenes, helping set the championship up, helping me keep up with the maths as well in the last few rounds, which has been very useful.
That's no small task, I can assure everyone watching at home. It's a very sophisticated spreadsheets with formulas to help Andy along. No, I'm kidding. You do a fantastically tremendous job do a fantastic job of keeping on top of it, and I'm just going to take the chance to say thanks to Andy, to Dan, Graham, everyone at Year One who's helped put this together. Yeah, it's been fantastic, and there are definitely worse ways to have to spend 2 or 3 months sat at home, aren't there?
Here, and yeah, it's been tremendous fun to bring everyone the coverage from the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, and that is, I think, how we'll wrap it all up. It's been a brilliant season of racing. Congratulations to Chris Lulham, who rounds out the season as your first ever British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. As ever, head over to all of the British Formula 4 social media pages for all of the updates after this final round of the championship, and perhaps more importantly, all of the build-up to the Real World Championship that's set to start in just under a couple of months' time. It's going to be a really fiercely fought-out competition out there on the UK's racetracks when we do go racing over a relatively short space of time as well, because it's all been condensed into the final 3 months or so of the season. So there's lots more racing coming your way from the British Formula 4 Championship later on in the year. Thanks to everyone from Year One Racing TV as well. Graham Sessford, who's been busy putting together all of our broadcasts behind the scenes, done a great job keeping up with all of the breaking stories today as well, and there have been plenty of them. Thanks to all of the drivers and teams, and also, most importantly, you guys at home for watching. There'd be no point really in doing this if we didn't have an audience watching from home. I'm glad to hear you've all enjoyed racing and the action from the championship over the last 7 weeks. It's a real shame it's over, but the good news is Year One Racing TV has plenty more esports action coming your way. On Wednesday, the Power Max Racing E-Series will be the next live action that we have to bring for you. Again, head to the Year One Racing TV social media pages for all of the upcoming broadcast schedules. It's time for us to leave you there, I think, now. Thank you very much for tuning in and helping us along through this British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Chris Lulham is your champion after winning the final race of the season here at Brands Hatch. Congratulations to him and Fortec as well for wrapping up the team's championship. We will see you back here on Year One Racing TV in the very near future. But for now, from myself, Andy McEwen, Graham Sessford, Dan Blake, Damien Meaden, and everyone else at the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, good night.